and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, recently, Nigeria joined the League of Countries to benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area in advancing the fortunes of the continent in areas such as trade and manufacturing capacities for industrialization. Now, under this, intra-African trade is expected to boost from 15 to 33% to reduce high foreign volume of trade into the continent. Now, 52 countries have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area that will also attract additional intra-African investments, create market opportunities and jobs. The African Continental Free Trade Area, many believe, is unique in many ways, especially its protection component that will block smuggling activities. Tariff is also expected to be reduced or eliminated. Now, much of the success expected can be realized, as people say, if the African Continental Free Trade Area is made simple and business-friendly. Tonight, we're looking at the new game changer for the African continent. We'll do things slightly differently tonight. We'll bring you different reports from parts of the country on the expected gains and the prospects of this wheel of progress. But first, let's get this background report from Makut Simon Macham.
Africa, a continent of about 1.3 billion people, has been known for its rich endowments of human and natural resources. Over the years, the continent has been the source for raw materials for other parts of the world which are developed or developing. Sadly, the continent has little to show for its endowments since it neither adds value to its raw materials nor produces goods it needs. Rather, it is a situation where raw materials leave Africa and are re-imported at higher cost as finished goods, thereby perpetually leaving Africa poorer and unable to deal with its development needs. For Africa to break this absurd development, which has everything to do with its colonial architecture, the continent came up with Agenda 2063, which is an ambitious plan to transform the continent to a developed area. Part of this agenda is to ensure that Africa trades with itself more, as against the case where countries in Africa trade with others outside the continent than within. This led to the creation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Initiative that is aimed at creating a single market where people and goods are exchanged within the continent. The agreement, which came into force in May 2019, having been ratified by 29 countries, was further consolidated at the 12th Extraordinary African Union Summit in Niamey, Niger Republic. Here, the big entry was Nigeria, where President Muhammadu Buhari signed on behalf of the country, having listened and responded to concerns of all stakeholders back home.
You can see, like I said, the excitement and the euphoria surrounding the Nigeria signature alone today, which means that the African continent is recognizing Nigeria's position, Nigeria's economic position, and Nigeria's economic potential, to be able to introduce, elements that will make the Continental Free Trade Area a success. 5 operational instruments were also launched at the summit, including the African Trade Observatory Dashboard, online monitoring and reporting portal, Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, online negotiation portal, and rules of origin portal. At the moment, 54 countries have signed the agreement, while one, Eritrea, is yet to sign. 35 others have also ratified, with 27 yet to do so.
Well, that report by Makut Simon Macham sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program Hajia Saratu Iya Aliu. She's National President, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. Nasima, thanks for being here tonight.
Good evening, sir.
Let me also welcome to this program Dr. Olumuyiwa Alaba. He's an economist and a trade expert. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us tonight is Mr. Ken Nukoha. He's president of the National Association of Nigerian Traders and also also a member of the Presidential Steering Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, sir.
And also joining us tonight is Francis Okumagba. He is an ex-bank director and founder, FMG Platform Empowerment Limited. He's a life coach and a mentor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. As we do every Tuesday, we acquaint you with the procedure of this program. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. However, as we always say, for those who will be phoning in tonight, do us a favor when your call gets through, turn down the volume of your TV set. Just reduce the volume. And once you do that, we can all avoid the hurlback or the echo. And then the best way to know that your call has been passed through to the studio is you'll see your name appear on screen. Once your name appears on screen, it means your call has been passed through to the studio. So just go right ahead with a question or comment. Don't waste too much time on greetings. May not be necessary to greet. Just go straight to the point, ask your question or make a comment, and whatever issues you raise, our guests here tonight will be only too willing to address them. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Let's begin. It's all talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area. And so we start off by putting it in true perspective. What does it mean to the ordinary citizen, the layman? Let's start off and turn to the president of NASIMA.
Thank you very much, Cyril. I want to thank the NTA for inviting me here this evening because this is the avenue where we can really understand what the African continental free trade is all about. And our viewers, both at home and abroad, will also hear from us here in Nigeria and to know what exactly it's going to fetch for them. So I want to thank NTA, and also I want to thank our President Muhammadu Buhari, for signing this great agreement. Because for us in NASIMA, we are really very excited, and a press release was done immediately. I think the following day he signed, congratulating him for taking this bold step in signing this agreement, because it took us time. We were trying to make sure of what we were going into before we signed, and most people expressed the fear that we might lose out if we do not sign immediately. And so we want to thank him very much for really taking that bold step and signing on our behalf. Thank you.
All right, well, so as we said, when Nigerian listens to this, you've commended the president, he signed it, and they say, what exactly is the free trade area? What is it about? What does it connote? And maybe Dr. Lumiwa Alaba.
Thank you, Siri. I want to lend my voice to congratulate Nigeria for signing this agreement. Talking about free trade area is an opportunity for trade operators to have opportunity to expanded market access within countries with we can call like-minded countries, because this forms a wide area with less stringent rules, with give and take in terms of market access. And you are talking about 1.2 billion people in terms of population. You are talking of over $3 trillion in terms of GDP, and you are talking about 55 countries. And the agreement is about not only free movement of goods, free movement of capital, free movement of people, which means that it opens and expanded opportunities to trade operators. So free trade area agreement eliminates all the constraints and all the rules that prevent movement of goods freely in a geographical boundary. That's what it is.
Okay. So let's come to Mr. Ken Okoha. You're president of the Association of Nigerian Traders, and you also a member of the Presidential Steering Committee on the African Continental Free Trade Area. So I am a Nigerian trader, and I walk up to you. I said, tell me, Mr. President and member, what do I have to do? What's this free trade area for me as a trader? Put it in the simplest of terms.
Thank you very much. And I think this is one thing that is, what the role of the media is. And therefore, it's commendable that NTA is picking up this particular subject matter at a time like this, so that the issue, the subject matter can be demystified and, clarified for practitioners as well as citizens to understand in their bits. Now, having said this, for me as a trader, what this AFCFTA could note is that there is an inroad created where there were obstacles before, and these obstacles are now being removed by a single agreement signed by countries within the geographical location. And therefore, what it means is that yesterday, I was finding it difficult to move my goods from my country to country B. But because of this agreement now signed, one is that those hurdles are removed. Two is that there is going to be a reduction or removal of tariff, taxes, levies, import duties that are attached thereto. Three is that this will also lead to increase in opportunities for me to trade more and make more benefits. Four is that all the encumbrances by customs and other legitimate agencies of government along the border lines and corridor are now also removed. And finally, that this is heading towards a situation where we'll now have common boundary, enlarged market, like he said, and more so, increased opportunities both for export and for production. That means it is not only for the trader himself, but it's also for the manufacturer who might be producing the goods, and also for the farmer. And the beautiful thing also in this agreement is that it does not look only at trade. It also goes beyond trade to services. So service providers, media operators like Siristoba are also having opportunities now to increase their latitude into other countries where they can practice. But beyond services, there's also a third leg. And where's the third leg? The third leg is that countries, the 54 countries, and when Eritrea comes in now, it becomes 55. These 55 countries are in a marriage that have to now cooperate in areas of, one, trade-related intellectual property rights, two, competition policy, and three, investments. So investments can run round. I am a trader. I can now invest in Angola and receive the same benefits that an Angolan has been receiving. As a manufacturer, I can move my manufacturing outfit to South Africa and still be given the same benefit that a South African has been receiving. And therefore, the status has changed. An expanded market, expanded tentacles, expanded opportunities, and perhaps benefits for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Clear enough. And then let's come to Francis Okumagba. To you, what does it entail?
Nigeria is the investment bride of the world because of our resources, enormous market size. And if you look at Africa today, we're the second largest continent in the world. And the colonial influence that we have in the past created a situation where a lot of trade balance was tilted towards the Western world. And most of our raw materials are taken out manufactured, converted, and transported back into Africa. And that has affected the development of Africa to a great extent. This initiative is the best thing that has happened to Africa. Because today we are going to look at ourselves now and retweak our thinking, our orientation, and ensure that we don't have these anomalies in a trade balance where we actually have the raw materials and have the materials exported and brought back with higher tariffs and all that, and we are at deficit. The trade among Africans is less than 18% of the trade volumes that we have. But what this would do is to actually create the enabling environment to Africans to start looking at how they can trade between themselves and increase the capacity to actually improve development in Africa. Because we'll be able to create more employment, we'll be able to produce more and convert our raw materials into produced goods that we can actually sell that have added value, that can create better balances in the trade exchange that we have between the world today. If you look at China, China is doing a lot. The Asian continent is the largest continent in the world today. And you see the advantage that China has over the world today. They have the market size, they are producing, and their economy is booming seriously. And if we correct that anomaly in Africa, they will not have space for us, because we have a lot that we are going to benefit with this initiative. And I think it's in the right direction.
All right, agreement's been signed. Next thing is under what policy framework? That's what many people were looking at. You say for Nasima, you were pleased the president signed because he had, delayed signing to understand the workings of the system. Now he has appended, Nigeria has appended its signature to it. So yes. What are the policy framework under which this will be fully implemented?
The president has signed, and I think it should come under the, I would say,
yeah, because what we're looking out here is, perhaps, as they say, signing is the easiest part of it.
Yes.
Putting it into practice is the main subject. Yes, and it's assumed that the countries that have so signed would have looked through with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that their individual interests are not compromised.
Yes, and that was why Nigeria did not sign in the first place all this while. So we now are looking at a policy that will really capture all the areas that we feel will benefit both the big manufacturers and the small and medium scale SMEs too.
Exactly, Dr. Alaba. As they say, the big fish and the small fish. Would this agreement, would this free trade area provide, a platform that both the small and the big fish can operate and derive benefits from?
Of course.
Yeah, if you look at global data on exports, it is the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises that export the most. If I'm correct, over 60% of exports are done by MSMEs.
62.
Yeah, MSMEs. And this actually provides environment for them to blossom. If we look inward and look at how can we conform with the market requirements in the foreign market, the standards, the sanitary and veterinary standards, the technical issues, technical measures in trade. If we put our house together very well, we'll start to benefit in this agreement. Because right now, in terms of manufacturing value added in Africa, Nigeria is the fourth, behind South Africa, behind Egypt, behind Algeria. And we are actually, in terms of manufacturing value added, we are more than double of what Morocco is doing. If you look at the service sector, our service potential is the highest in Africa. The only thing we need to do is to manage our export concentration away from dominance of oil. Currently, export concentration in South Africa is about 0.1%, but it's over 0.7% in Nigeria, which means that in South Africa, their exports are diverse, but in Nigeria, we concentrate on one product. And so if we can, manage ourselves to divest from oil and make sure everything we do here, we can actually match the foreign market requirements, we can dominate West African market. We can dominate African market, and we can move from there to other continents. So this is a great opportunity for us to harmonize our standard with the rest of with the best practice in Africa, to look at what are the behind the border issues and before the border issues that is hindering us from exporting successfully, and we can solve that and dominate the continent.
There's some aspect of this that I'm curious about, and maybe Mr. Ken Ukwa can help us out here. It's in terms of manufacturing, and Francis here has drawn attention to the fact that we export, and these countries take those products. I mean, they turn them into, they take the raw materials, turn them into products and bring back to us. Okay. For some time, the thinking was, let's step up our manufacturing activities, use our materials here, produce our own goods, what we want. This agreement would relax the movement of goods and trading across all the borders in the continent. How will that affect your drive to produce your own goods? Because already there are some parts of the continent that are ahead of you in terms of manufacturing.
2 points. One is that in every trade agreement, I'm a trade lawyer, in every trade agreement, there are always winners and losers. That's one. The fact today that America and China are dragging on trade is because they want to find out who is going to lose, who is going to win. Domination. And that's one. Number two is that the signing of the AFCFTA, and I must caution, does not bring automatic benefit on the table. No. It is just an introduction to involvement, to engagement, and to participation and membership. 4 things: involvement, engagement, negotiation, and participation, membership. Now, having said this, Nigeria, specifically on July 7th, came to Niamey like the big masquerade that came to the market square. And every other masquerade went down. Why? Because the whole world was looking for Nigeria. In fact, at a point, some pundits were asking, come on, is Nigeria also going to become the elephant in the middle of the road, just like what it did in the EPA negotiations? But then suddenly, and I say suddenly, just like Fela said, suddenly Nigeria appeared in a glorious manner, and the president signed, and the whole world clapped. But that clapping signifies the kind of honor Nigeria wields in the whole, not only in Africa, but in the whole world. But after that, now comes work. There's a question you asked on policy. On what policy platform is the AFCFTA going to be implemented in Nigeria? 2 policies. One is, it is time for us to now begin to look at our trade policy. And such trade policy must also now begin to anchor on the commitments and the contents of the AFCFTA framework. 2 is that it is also time for us to now x-ray the AFCFTA on one hand, and our development plan, which is the ERGP, on the other hand, marry both. But one good thing that happened is that while we were, X-raying the entire process, which delayed Nigeria's signing, by the way, because the president insisted there must be consultations, proper consultations, so that he does not sign away Nigeria's future in the FCFTA.
Okay.
But so one of the things that we did is to factor ERGP contents, although the ERGP will be expiring by 2020. Yes. And that's another signpost that has to wait for us. So it is work in progress for us. Thank you.
All right. Okay. At this point in time, we'll begin to take some of the reports that we have put together from zones. This is to talk about the expected benefits of this agreement. The first in the series, of course, will go to this report, which is coming from Kano. It's by correspondent Mohammed Rabiu Ali.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is an agreement that provides an opportunity to Nigeria and other African countries where there will be free movement of defined goods and services on terms and conditions. Though the trade will not allow member states on trans-arrangement where goods will be imported from Asia or Europe as part of the scheme. Kano State, for instance, is one among many states in the country that has a lot to offer in these trade relations, looking at the famous Dawanau grains market and other exported goods to include hibiscus flower, tamarind, among others.
The coming into being of this project, the definition of this area, the agreement, is that it is going to make trade and production within Africa competitive. And by competitive, I mean very, very low cost that can exploit the global market and not only remain in business, but continue to grow and prosper.
However, trading among Africans before this treaty was difficult or rather cumbersome due to currency barrier, weak institutions, and port conjunction, among other impediments. But for all the participating countries to benefit from the trade, lots of issues need to be tackled.
We have a very big market. Compared to all other countries in Africa, our market is the biggest. And we are the target, not we targeting other markets. Because cost of production in Nigeria is not low as it is in other countries. So you find out that even though we have product to sell, but the price we are going to sell it, is it going to be competitive in other markets?
The issue here is that, given our experience with the ECOWAS, you will see that, okay, there's an agreement that each country within African ECOWAS sub-region can now trade with seamless operation. But you find out that the case is not the same. You discover that Nigeria is the only country that's having the least VAT, that is value added tax that you pay at the border, of around 5%.
All right, that one's from Kano. Let's go to Jigawa State, and Abdullahi Birnin Kudu has this next report.
Perhaps Jigawa State, northwestern part of Nigeria, could be regarded as the most suitable with high prospect of benefiting from the African Free Trade Agreement signed by President Muhammadu Buhari. This is because the state has over the years enjoyed historical trade relations with the neighboring African country of Niger. In fact, Jigawa State, especially northwestern part of the state, shares many things in common with that country. This could be deduced from their ways of living, with agriculture and cattle rearing as their main source of livelihood.
In the case of Nigeria and Niger, it's as if we are one nation, because there's a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of things that are common between the two of us, and traditionally, culturally, and so on. This facilitates more effective trading relationship or trading contracts.
This is Megatari International Market, the largest cows market in Africa. In this market, trading using both Niger and Nigerian currencies is common among traders who communicate in both languages of the two neighboring countries. There is no doubt the signing of free African trade agreement is very welcome with much enthusiasm by the people in this corridor.
Products that are being used there, some household products that are being used in Niger, some sanitary products that are being used in Niger.
Allaying fears over security concerns, both the state government and economic experts believe the good relationship between the people of the two countries will help in checking those with criminal minds in achieving the objectives of the policy.
The fear is discussed, and the various ways are also discussed of tackling them. In fact, in his speech, he said, we must be cautious of the injurious, from the word injury, injurious intervention of third party. That is, he is trying to express the fear of not making Nigeria a dumping ground.
There is a greater hope that the presence of migratory export-free zone with a reputable international market will be an added advantage to this important free trade agreement. In Dutse, Jigawa State, Abdullahi Garba Birnin Kudu, NTA News.
All right, those two reports, Kano and next Jigawa. And of course, you had talk about prices being competitive and the question of agriculture in neighboring countries, Nigeria, Niger, and the concern that was raised by one of the respondents there about dumping, which brings us to what we were trying to raise. You have your goods here, now you have a free trade, agreement, and it does mean that the way you look at your goods, accessing markets in other African countries, they're also looking at their goods accessing yours. So what prevents this question of dumping?
You see, you can appreciate why the president was reluctant in signing that agreement in the first place. Because in every trade agreement, there are the downsides and the upsides. We have a lot of advantage in having opened our borders to free trade zone among Africans and all that. Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa today. And if we are not careful and we are not very observant of what is going on, we can actually be used as dumping ground. You can imagine when they had the ban on vehicles, second-hand vehicles and all that, and rice importation and all that. But you saw what was happening in Benin Republic and what people were doing. They were dumping most of those products in Benin Republic and they were passing them to Nigeria easily. So when you open your trade down, open your borders down, for instance, you can have infiltration of other countries who are importing inferior goods through those other African countries to actually infiltrate Nigeria. And because your borders have been left open, you can actually be used as a dumping ground. But I believe very strongly that the president's body language and the issue of corruption and security will help a lot in curtailing most of those things that we fear. Those things are things that can actually be managed. With good surveillance, with good technology, we can actually put up things that we can actually use to monitor the borders, even though we have the borders open, and we'll be able to contain that. So we can take advantage of all the benefits that accrue with opening the borders to the African continent. I believe very strongly that the opportunity is there. Our market is very large, and because of this, a lot of investments will be attracted, manufacturing will be improved, technology will come, and there will be innovation, and we'll be able to take a full advantage of the free continental zone that we have.
Haja Saratu, how is Nasima looking to maximize the benefits of this agreement when it comes into place, really?
Nasima has put in a mechanism of really organizing seminars, workshops for its members. We have to really put in a lot of advocacy. Our members have to know really what it entails for them to get into this market and gain from it the way they should. Because people who do not know, if we do not teach them, if we do not let them know what they are going into. They will go into that area blindly. So NACIMA has put in a mechanism in place where a lot of advocacy will take place, and we are also requesting the government to do the same. We have to really go out and make our members understand what we are going into. This is not a child's play. We really have to have our acts in place to be able to measure up to the standard that is required of us. We had one of our members, Engineer Jani Ibrahim, who really has participated in this African Continental Free Trade negotiations. He has covered a lot of grounds, and he has come back and he has let us know what really we are going into, and NACIMA is prepared to make its members realize that this is the best thing that is happening to us, but yet we have to prepare ourselves for it.
Well, Dr. Alaba, you're a trade expert. Prior to this, Nigeria had agreements with other countries. Expectedly, other African countries who have now signed onto this free trade area, they've also had their own agreements, trade agreements with other countries, and some of them not necessarily African countries. Now, how would this proceed without prejudice to whatever agreements that you have had before?
You see, looking at the content of the CFTA agreement, there is no, if you look at the different elements of that agreement, you will realize that it is like a domestication of all the agreements that they have been involved in before. It has the characteristics of all the agreements in WTO. It has characteristics of the ETLS, the CET that we have signed. You can locate every one of those content of agreement that Nigeria has been involved in all around the world in this African Continental Free Trade Area agreement. And also, even the TFA agreement, Trade Facilitation Agreement that Nigeria signed in 2014 and ratified in 2017, you see the whole content of that agreement within this CFTA. And the most exciting thing about the CFTA is that it has one of the most robust safeguard and remedial clauses. The agreement is subject to review every 5 years. When you notice injuries in any area, you can raise a red flag for a review. It has a very robust safeguard and remedial measures that has been built into the agreement. So I don't think there's anything for Nigeria to fear in this agreement, because it is like all the things you have been doing put together in one package and you run with it.
All right. Let's go to the phones now. We have our very first caller tonight. I'm calling in from Ilori. Mubarak is on the line. Hello, Mubarak.
Good evening.
Yes.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Go right ahead. Good evening.
Yes. Please, I really appreciate what the government have done by signing it. What I have to say is that we have to look inward, and someone said about taking the custom off our border. That would not help us. Because Nigeria is a very populated, we are the most populated nation in the African continent. So if we are saying, okay, we are taking our custom from the borders, we are reducing the cost of the import, are the security agency ready? Many things will enter Nigeria, things that we won't even know what we are going to do later if we are not ready. I think this is a critical issue for this nation. Please, we have to be very careful about it. We are looking at it from one side. We should not be looking at it from one side. We should be looking the other side too. We are only looking at the advantage. let's also prepare for the disadvantages because of the future of the youth of the nation. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mubarak Kolinin from Ilori. And that puts it right at your doorstep, Kedukoha. You heard the man. Let's talk about relaxed regimes. And he talked about customs, for instance, and the cost of importation. So how do we explain that?
Honestly, Mubarak's fears are genuine. Right. Very, very genuine. And I want to thank him. I mean, he says a young man. I think he's also afraid of the future of the young people. But let me say this, that if you look at what I have here with me, it is the report of the presidential committee that was set up by the president on the AFCFTA. And this report expressed all of these fears, harnessed all the, harvested and harnessed all the concerns and interests. And don't forget that, the president ordered for consultations in all the 60 political zones. During those consultations, all these fears came up. And of course, the issue of insecurity as well. Mm-hmm. The issue of, free movement of persons, especially now that we are having serious challenges as far as insecurity is concerned. The issue of border control, porosity of the borders, smuggling, all of these things we have put on the table, including the fact that our industries are somehow still very, very weak, so to speak. Now, but the point is this. We also analyzed all of these and noted that, yes, if we don't sign this agreement, we are left like between the devil and the deep blue sea. Okay. If we don't sign this agreement, of course, because of the porosity of the borders, goods will be coming, even from third parties that are not members of the agreement. Okay. So, but just a minute. The point we just made there is, you cannot, because of bullet flying, and say you are not going to war. It is only when you go to war that you now beat down your enemy and take over and have.
All right, we'll return to the issue of third parties, but let's get to the phones again, and we have calling in from Lokoja, Ibrahim. Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, go right ahead.
Evening, sir. My question is that, given the nature of our economies now that we need to generate more income from the revenue being generated from the custom section, with the new agreement, but that is free trade agreement signed by our government, how do you see this will favor the economy, the revenue generation to boost our economy?
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much. That's a question.
Another side of it is that if there's a free trade and the security situation of the country, does this thing favor the country like Nigeria? And I think that maybe if there's a free trade, there's a more flow of maybe weapons, and if weapons, that's firearms, ammunition, and other things, please, if you can clear the air on this.
All right. Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. Our guest here would certainly clear the air on that. The fair's been expressed by so many Nigerians. This is also in line with it. And from the last bit he said about security, would this also entail free movement of weapons and arms and ammunition into the country? But beyond that, the question of manufacturing again comes up here. If, like Kedukoha says, industries are still a little bit weak in the manufacturing sector, and now the countries are producing more, you have a free trade area agreement, and their goods can come in. Yes, you have a very large market, so they can push more of their goods in here. You're thinking of prices being competitive. The few ones that you have that are not comatose, can they compete against other African countries?
I think it's something we must consider, because you don't go into business without competitive advantage. And currently we have challenges that are very, very glaring. Security is a challenge to farmers today. We also have the issue of ease of doing business. We also have the cost of doing business. For instance, there are a lot of countries that are beginning to enjoy power, like Ghana and some of these African countries. We also have the issue of ease of credit. Currently, Nigeria does not have any form of credit, as far as I'm concerned, because the banks are not lending. And if you compete with a country that has all those things, they have power, they have ease of borrowing money to do business and all that, and they're able to be empowered to increase what they need to actually manufacture their goods, they will produce competitive advantage for them via goods, because their goods will become more competitive than the goods that we have. And the issue of dumping is something that we must look at very closely, because Nigeria is the biggest economy, and people will want to actually take advantage of our economy. And if we are not competitive in the productions that we have, the goods that we have, we will certainly be buying what is actually brought into the country, and it will not be good for us. So we need to address certain things. I know that for sure the president must have considered these issues in considering the delays in signing that agreement.
All right, the infrastructure deficit, some people have raised questions about that, and it's come up again here. How do you see that played out?
Yeah, infrastructure deficit is everywhere in Africa. It's not limited to Nigeria alone, and that's the truth.
Okay.
Now, but then you cannot continue to wait for orders. Development should be coming up, and don't forget that the funds needed for infrastructure development can also be realized through trade, through increased trade. And that's how you will also increase the momentum of revenue generation coming in. In the first maybe 4-5 years, there will be a lull in the level of revenue, because there will be a reduction in revenue accruing to the government because of this agreement. That's the truth.
Okay.
However, thereafter, there will be a jump in revenue generation getting back.
5 years, you can review this agreement.
Yes.
Well, might be a lull, a slowdown in revenue. Some people have expressed fears about that, and then it will pick up. Within the 5-year period, you have what is always the issue in most countries in this situation, and that is the political will. You see that?
Good.
Well, like I always say, this is a trade policy issue. And what we often do in Nigeria is to always attempt to use trade policy to solve industrial policy problems. If we have concrete industrial policy, which takes care of, sequencing of provision of infrastructure based on our needs, which look at, for instance, okay, how do we increase power? How do we ensure that we have standard infrastructure to conform with the rest of the world? Those are concrete industrial policy issues, which we often use trade policy to address. Now, we need to move away from thinking that trade policy will solve all problems, to then put together concrete industrial policy that will address all of these issues within some, it will not address all at the same time, but we can sequence the order in which we address these things, such that as we are considering what benefit or cost trade policy is going to bring to us, we can also begin to look at how do we create environment for our industries to grow based on concrete industrial policy framework. That's my point.
All right. There's another caller on the line, this time from right here in Abuja. Aziz is calling in. Hello, Aziz. Is Aziz on the line?
It's a very big program, and I think we just have to address the security issues because the entire borders in this country still remain porous. And not to be able to address that, we have to
oh dear. Oh dear. Aziz, I'm so sorry. We couldn't get you clearly there. The line has been rather erratic, and I think we've lost that line there. But I'd like to encourage you to call back, and so we can get your input into this discussion. So try and call back, and we also encourage our other callers who are on the line to stay on and call. We're sure that some of these hitches or glitches will be taken care of. But for now, let's take a short break. When we return, there'll be more on the AFCFTA. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks for staying with us, getting to know the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. We took out the cameras and spoke to the citizens. Let's get to hear their views on the subject matter.
For the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we appreciate his effort to make youth to get a job to do. So we really appreciate his effort.
And I hope Nigeria will sit up to be able to meet up with other nations like Ghana, Kenya, even Rwanda, who are far more. They don't have oil, they don't have much land for farming and other things.
Because here we are talking about free trade. And remember, Nigeria is a leading economy in Africa. And Nigerians are everywhere in Africa. The AFTA agreement has a conflict resolution framework that will prevent the hostility and the attacks that Nigerians experience in other parts of Africa. It will also provide an opportunity for Nigerians to work in other parts of Africa freely. And what that will mean is that it stands to increase diaspora remittances. Your kinsmen in other parts of Africa who are now working freely can also remit money home. So it's going to promote trade, no doubt. And given our position in Africa, there's every likelihood that in the near future you begin to see Nigerian companies in Ghana, begin to see Nigerian companies in these other countries, just as you are also likely to see those companies in Nigeria.
We must train our young entrepreneurs. We must train our young people in area of services, because there are a lot to gain. Many companies that are coming for processing, many companies that are coming to trade, they need personnel. So our young Nigerians will get more jobs. In fact, they will now be spread over Africa.
We need to make sure that we do not condone corruption, because corruption is something that will impede our involvement in this trade, involvement in this arrangement. So we need to really take it home, let our people understand, let our custom officers understand that it shouldn't be business as usual, that if really want to leverage on the benefit of ACTA, we need to do in line with is applicable in other climes.
All right, we'll get back to some of the reports that are coming from the zones. We have this one from the Commercial Nerve Center of Abia State. It's coming from Aba. This report is by Grace Nana.
Aba prides itself as a city capital for small and medium enterprises, notably in the production and sale of clothing, shoes, bags, and other accessories, as well as household items. The signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement by President Muhammadu Buhari is designed to reduce trade tariffs among member countries. The anticipation is that it will encourage increase in production of goods in the zone, creating a broader avenue for Aba merchants to showcase their ingenuity to the world.
Before now, people come from Ghana, across Africa to buy or patronize made in Nigeria. So with this liberalization of trade, there will be enough patronage for Aba.
One thing that hampers production here is where to carry these goods to. Many things we produce here don't even cross just the borders. Aba, giving them chance, they can go mines, whatever is done abroad can produce here.
Manufacturers in Aba are pointing to the challenge in infrastructure like electricity and transportation, which they want addressed for cost-effective production and participation in the free trade deal.
I talk about electricity. Everything snowballs electricity. If it is in place, then we would produce and be competitive. At the moment, we cannot produce with 240 naira diesel. Let us give power 12 hours alone to manufacturers, artisans, and this, so that people can program their production within that 12 hours and be able to compete.
The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is world's largest in terms of participating countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. If well implemented, it will promote competition among local artisans and other African countries. In Aba, Grace Nana, NTA News.
And from Aba to Maiduguri, we have this next report. It's by Yagum Subukar.
Although Borno State has united industries for production of goods and services, the strategic location of the state bordering three countries of Niger, Chad, and Cameroon makes it an important trade route. This trade route opens the gateway to Sudan, Central and East Africa. Even before the African Free Trade Agreement, Borno State has been a center of commerce and a vital link of movement of goods and services to significant parts of Africa as goods arrive from the ports, industries from the hinterland, and international cargo activities mostly through Kano. Traders from most parts of the African countries rely on Maiduguri route to move their goods and services, hence the growth of popular Boloristos and Babalai trade zone. With the signing of this strategic African Continental Free Trade Area, business activities will quadruple in Borno as requirement for more services and movement of goods enhances significantly.
Government will have to look at the way they liberalize our own internal systems first. Like now, how is it easy for our traders to get loans from the banks? Is it easy for our traders to set up manufacturing industries? So these are all the changes that we have to look. If these things are open, obviously employment will grow up, development will come in, economic boost will be there.
It is also hoped that it will not only stimulate development of local industries and revival in Borno, but provide job opportunities as well as ensure circulation of money through exchange.
As of 2018, the total remittances were about $25 billion. So, which is from $22 billion. So, which means, but now, this is before the agreement. Now, after the agreement, you can see the likelihood that also remittances will also be increased in the economy.
We are feeling as if it is signed for us in Borno State because our business will flourish more than before now.
The Continental Free Trade Agreement, according to experts, will create a single African market for goods and services with free movement of businesses and persons, as well as expand intra-African trade through better harmonization.
All right. Taking advantage, pushing out Nigeria's goods and services to African countries, removing the bottlenecks. So let's come back here and talk to the Nasima president and say, look, how will we maximize? We asked this question before, but now let's be more practical about it. It does mean that for your members, they can have easier access to other markets in the continent.
Yes. Well, our members are going to have easier access. But before we really talk about that easier access, we have to have the best that we can give out. Because if we take substandard goods outside, we are not really giving out the best. So we have to have our infrastructure in place. We will have to have power, as you heard them say, and our members will have to improve on their services, what they produce. They have to produce the right thing, the correct thing. We do not want to give out substandard goods to other countries. We are afraid of dumping. If we do not produce high quality goods in Nigeria, when they bring their goods, people definitely would want to go for their own, and then we have ours left. So we would want to have the correct atmosphere for our members to really operate and give the best, because we are ready to really go out into the African markets.
All right, Francis, in a report from Maiduguri, you heard the man who said it would seem as if this agreement was signed for Borno State because he's looking at all the advantages that people in that state can have to further advance into other markets across the borders, and they seem to be raring to go. But how will they make the inroads with the background that we have already established?
We've talked about this severally. Security, security, security. Borno State, you know what is happening in Borno State now? And Borno State used to be a major trade center. And security as well as actually hampered the movement of trade in that area. So if they are looking at the free trade zone and all that, it would be advantageous for them to actually increase their volumes of trade if they can tackle security. So security is a problem. But I don't want to leave security alone. I want to digress a bit. We also need to start looking at other things that we need to do. We need to reorientate our people to change the tastes and the way we go about goods that are manufactured outside Africa. The way we do things and how things are done in the past. We also need to look at how we can actually change the mindset. Then coming to government, how we can actually ease credit in the system. Because whether you like it or not, credit has an input to providing the money that you need to actually set up these industries and manufacturing sets. If people cannot access credit, because we have a system where banks don't lend at all, because the funds that you should be lending out are transferred to TSA, then we need to start looking at that. I haven't signed this agreement. We need to look at how we can make it work and how we can make our goods more competitive so that people can actually manufacture and be able to sell with a competitive advantage. We need to look at the banks again. If it requires us recapitalizing the banks again, let's recapitalize the banks again and see how we can provide and solve the problem of credit. The issue of power, we can actually have a phased power implementation and create power in certain areas where you have a lot of manufacturing activities and all that, so that you can actually reduce the cost of doing business in those processing zones. Now, the ports, the seaports and the airports. We have a seaport in Lagos. It is high time we start looking at how we can actually get more seaports. We have Cocoa, we have Warri Port, we have Port Harcourt, and we have other ports in Akwa Ibom. If you do that, then you have actually reduced the cost of doing business for a lot of those people, because they have to take what they produce to the seaports for export. So we need to decentralize the port in Lagos and decongest the port in Lagos to ease the movement of goods and services that we have to use to export to those African countries that we want to get to.
All right, you do have the inland ports also coming up. But let's get back to the phones, and calling in from Abuja is Abubakar. Hello, Abubakar.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. and finally. Actually, I'm very interested about this discussion because I have much interest about border business. I wonder why always when issue comes like this. What I was surprised all the time, Mr. Francis there, he has spoken about the insecurity. And the insecurity where we are having problems, most of this criminality that are being conducted currently, those criminals, they are handing out around those bushes. So what we are trying to emphasize here is how the government, especially the state government, create an avenue where those these bushes that we have around the border or maybe Kaduna, look at how people are, look at how these bushes are unabundantly without even consider how we can develop those areas where maybe you can utilize it to maybe revenue generation area, or maybe we have our irrigation. Developing maybe irrigation to various down where we can maybe have 2 times or 3 season farming, so that our youth can be developed or can be maybe at least they're using other way of generating revenue and maybe employment. But at the end of the day, you find out that these bushes are not used, are not developed, are not doing anything. We are just abundantly. That is why all this criminality are handed out and then maybe committed any sort of crime without any considering the fact that available.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Abubakar, thank you for calling in. Well, Dr. Alaba, it's been said that there will be huge advantages, especially for agriculture, right? Abubakar has just been talking about improved and increased agricultural activities if we're going to get into trade like this. But beyond that, let's also find out, in addition to that, what are the areas of Nigeria's comparative advantage where we will make a competitive, we'll get the benefits there, you know, in this whole agreement?
You see, every sector of Nigeria, let me put it like this, every state in Nigeria, we have unique resources in terms of mineral resources, and we have very agile and ready to go human resources in Nigeria. But the environment should be enabled for them to really maximize these potentials. What we need to do is to consider value addition production. When we plant, when we harvest, what value are we adding? Are we just selling those products that way? So what I will encourage government to do is to create clusters of productions around the country where you have a kind of public-private partnership where you can do a backward linkage to the farmers. When you do backward linkage to the farmers, you actually, through what used to be extension services, you know, tell them what the market needs in terms of market intelligence, assist them in terms of improved seedling, assist them in terms of production culture, what kind of chemical component is, is permissible abroad. Then the clusters will be like off-takers from the farmers. And those clusters can then add value to the produce of farm produce. And then from these clusters, those things can be taken to the world. So those are the kind of, then in terms of power, let me come to this. I know some kind of project or donor-funded project in Sura Market in Lagos and Ariara Market in Aba, where they encourage private sector to put together independent power plants, and they metered those shops, and the power plant got rid of all generators, and they had access to power for more hours in the day, and they pay less. So I think these are things to be replicated across Nigeria. If you go to Sura Market in Lagos, they give testimonies that, oh, this thing has actually worked for us. Instead of us maintaining generator, spending much on diesel, this is provided for us for so number of hours per day. You can plan your life and you pay less. Those are the kind of things that we need to consider to upscale.
All right. More calls coming in now, this time from Adama. Collins is calling in from Adama. Hello, Collins.
Hello? Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, I would say I'm grateful today, sir, to speak to you. I would say that since when I was a child, Mr. Cyril, I've been watching you for over 30 years now. I'm grateful. And I would like to make an input concerning what the man in the suit is saying and the very person close to him. The truth of the matter is that Nigeria is going to become a dumping ground if the youth have not been enabled to carry out their own businesses. So let me give you my experiences. I come from the north. I'm from Adamawa State. Do me a favor, carry out an investigation on what happened to Presidential Committee on the Northeast Zone. We have been trained on business development. We have been trained on graphics design, on handset repairs. In Adamawa State, 400 of us has been graduated since December last year. In Maiduguri, in Jalingo, and in Potiskum, till today, none of us has ever been given anything to start any business of our own. These are businesses that are viable. We have been trained on ITC, and we know that money has been disbursed under the Presidential Committee on Northeast Zone. We are only giving 30,000 naira. I was also trained by the Bank of Industry since 2016. Have been carrying all on business plan, business development, everything. We're going to Jalingo for 5 days internship. At the end of the day, we're asked to give a business plan. We'll give a business plan how we're going to help ourselves. When I submitted my certificate, I was told that my certificate is more than 10 years old, so I'm not eligible for loan. I'm not eligible for anything. Now, even with the stringent condition, I was able to meet all the conditions by the Bank of Industry so that I can be able to have the facilities to, at least to set up my own printing press and my own business. But I would say that my certificate is 10 years old. Now, what about people that doesn't have anybody to have a collateral? And yet they have the expertise, they have the brain, they have the mind, but they have nobody to stand for them. That brought the question of the enabling ground. Now, you go for the business development. That business development bank, the condition they will give you, the banks are not lending. You cannot be able to access anything. Yes, you have the knowledge, you have the mind, you have the zeal, you have the passion, and you want to do anything. Nobody will assist you. This is the country we live in, Nigeria. Now, even when there is a social intervention, I ask that the media should go and see the people that are being given those things. You find out these are the people that doesn't even deserve those help. You find out that they are political people that are giving them, not even those people that are on the street. If really we want to help, let us go to the street. Look at the person who is doing the vulcanizer. Look at the person who is learning the trade. The person who is also carrying out welding. These are the people that need help. But those facilities goes to people that doesn't even deserve it. You see that they come with their own cars. You are giving it. I mean, that is the truth. If really we have the potentials, we have the people that want to do things, but the truth of the matter is not easy. The truth of the very, I would say that is my elder brother or my father, that the very person that is on the suit, that definitely Nigeria will be a dumping ground if that attitude has not been changed. Nothing is free. Nothing is easy for you to access any single naira in Nigeria. I have the mind. I have the knowledge. I have been trained. In businesses, I know, but I have no one. Okay. Only me. I can go from one place to other place. Nobody's going to help you to do anything.
All right.
I mean, we should not deceive ourselves.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Collins, thank you very much for calling. You've raised some very fundamental issues, and you know, it ties in with the question I was going to put into Kenukora. Well, you know, if we leave out the corporate bodies, the small businessmen, the retail businessmen, the common man as well, and you just heard Collins there talk about, you know, artisans and people like that, and others who have been trained, and how they can fit into this attempt to take advantage of the benefits of a free trade area agreement. These are the people who are going to be engaged in production, distribution, and services, as you talked about. So how can this be taken advantage of to move? It's just going beyond the signing of the agreement.
Thank you very much. First of all, I sympathize with the situation raised by Collins, and I hope that somebody in government is also listening, so that there could be some level of investigation to find out appropriate thing that has happened, and then the appropriate measures also that could be taken. I'm not sure it's only Collins. There may be other people in that line, right. And I think something has to be done. But then, looking at this stricto sensu, I think The AFCFTA provides opportunities not for federal government alone. But I also want to say that it's important that state governments would need to come in now to play some roles. We've seen a lot of state governments going out to borrow money because there's no fund within. And the cake they have been, sharing is also depleting. So they're going outside the shores now to borrow. But I also have thought that people who are borrowing money should have also looked at IGR. How do we internally generate revenue that could placate us from, further borrowing? This is an opportunity that AFCFTA has created. First, there is no local government in this country where you do not have a comparative advantage, where you don't have commodity that God blessed them with, specifically. If I would say, every local government that gets any 10 naira from federal government as an allocation at the end of the month, if you pay your salaries, look at 10%, 15% that's remaining, out of what is remaining, keep it and invest it for productivity, whether for farmers or for manufacturers. And these are the kind of people that could be brought in to say, in this particular commodity or in these particular services that you have been trained in, this is seed money. Use this and fly. We may not be able to get everything that you require as a people, as a government. That's one area. And then the states. We're talking about AFCFTA. And it appears that it's the only federal government that is, that since Buhari has signed the agreement, then let it be left for him. No. The states should also now sit down, if you ask me, the commissioners for agriculture, commissioners for trade and industry, in every state should have, if you like, a council meeting all together to look at the dynamics of this particular agreement and opportunities therein and wielding. But beyond this, we have the private sector, and I'm happy Aja is here. Nasima, Man, in fact, we have already talked about having a meeting now to strategize on how to brace into the opportunity. And this is no longer solo efforts. We are coming together, all the organized private sector practitioners, the organizations, we're coming together to dynamize. And by the way, sorry, there is something that we must look at. There is no country in this Africa where you do not find Nigerian traders buying and selling. And if that is the case, it means that these people are our ambassadors for trade. The ambassadors for the AFCFTA.
An interesting thing you just mentioned, yes, Nigerians in other parts of the continent. Correct. Trading. Of late, there have been incidences involving Nigerians and restrictions on their business activities in other countries. With the AFCFTA, do you envisage that those issues will now find,
Beautiful, you've taken it out of my mouth. And that's exactly where I was heading to. Mm-hmm. Now that we have AFCFTA, I also expect a situation where negotiators will now begin to call the African Union to the table to say, please, this is what we have been facing. We've faced that in Ghana. We've been facing that in South Africa. And I've said this, that in the past 30 months, we've lost about 130 people, 30 Nigerians. 130 Nigerians in South Africa alone. We must be alive before we trade. Therefore, African Union, we have also seen that some part of this, continent, some countries in this continent are envious of certain, enterprising countries, citizens. Now, can we put a clause somewhere that we tie everyone together to say, if we find this, these are the sanctions. If this happens, these are the sanctions. Now, today, Ghana has become the secretariat of the AFCFTA. And of course, we, the Nigerian traders, Nance, we called upon our president and said, please, support Ghana. Let them have it. Now, let us see whether Ghana, as the secretariat of the AFCFTA, will still go back to chase Nigerian traders out of their domain. So it is strategic. That's why we ask our president support. So these are the things that we have looked at. Where is the place of xenophobia in trade? So it is an expanded boundary that you cannot again ask me to leave because you feel I'm a foreigner. No, courtesy of this particular agreement, I am no longer a foreigner in Ghana. I am no longer a foreigner in South Africa. Neither am I a foreigner in Angola. I am now deemed as an African citizen. Correct. A community citizen. Correct. And that's what I've looked at. So I can be there, and what the government will now be doing is find a space of using these traders from Nigeria, and I'm stealing this out, use them as ambassadors. In fact, before the framework of the agreement and everything and the protocols I have now fully agreed onto, set up export zones and strategies and warehouses in these countries, launch them out. Then take up goods from here, put them in those particular warehouses. As people are waking up, they are seeing Nigerian goods already on the table. You cannot send them away because you have signed. And therefore, consumers are becoming aware. Nigerians are taking over already. And we are already, right from the spot or the day of liberalization, you are making benefits for the country. And I expect government to sit down and bring Nigerians together, the private sector together. Let's have a bit. In fact, there are many other things I do not want to, I shouldn't say them right here on the television because you don't know where it gets to. There are strategies we can plot out.
All right, let's quickly take this call. Let's quickly take this call before we come to it. It's coming from Ekiti. On the line from Ekiti. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm home. I'm still...
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Go ahead with a question or comment.
Okay. With the introduction of the agreement. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Latif, go ahead with the introduction of the agreement. Yes, what's next? Oh dear. Okay, right, you were going to come in here.
I happen to have my interest in entrepreneurship, mentoring a lot of young people into opening their eyes on how they can create wealth from little or nothing. And the last person that actually made comment about the issue of empowerment and getting people prepared for engagement touched me. There are a lot of things that we need to do to wake up our economy. Nigeria remains the investment bride of the world. We are not harnessing our resources and our people. Everything we need to succeed is in Nigeria, but we are not just doing the things that we are supposed to be doing. There are a lot of unemployed youth today, and poverty is around the corner. And the things we need to solve those problems are available. Government has tried to do so many things. Look at Empower. Look at Niger Delta and Amnesty. There are so many things that they've actually provided to support the youth unemployment, but we are not making any impact because the extent we can actually reach, the number of people that we can reach is so small compared to the enormity of the problem. You don't need 1 naira to start any business. And if they actually make provision of 10% of the provisions that we currently have in Empower, Amnesty, and the Northeast Intervention Fund, we will solve unemployment problem by over 30%. What we require is education and enlightenment. You don't need 1 naira to start a business. You can actually start a business employing people to work for you that you don't pay salaries. You can actually get people that have talents. Today we have skills. People have skills. They are sitting down like that young man that just made a comment just now. He has got all the training, he has gone to the university, but he doesn't have anything to do because he's waiting for how he will get capital. He's waiting for how he can get loan from a bank to be able to start up a business. If we have a system that can create the orientation and the reorientation for all those who have that feeling that they can actually start business without 1 naira in their pocket, will have reduced unemployment by over 30% in Nigeria. You don't need 1 naira. You can employ somebody today and give him work to do and make money in the process. I told somebody I was training that, look, do you know if you go to Metama today and look for 10 premises where you can do their garden and you charge them 10,000 naira, it will amount to 100,000 naira a month. Turn back and employ a gardener and offer to pay the gardener minimum wage of 30,000 naira. You will have made 70,000. You don't need 1 naira to do that. You don't need 1 naira to open a shop. Because today the internet has opened a social media. You can take pictures of goods that you don't pay, that you don't rent a shop for, that you don't employ people to work in, and take the pictures instead of doing selfie and put those pictures in the social media and start a market. And you have over 10,000 people see those goods to sell, and you have started your business already. So I'm giving hope to that young man, and I'm bringing it back to government. Government should do something to create reorientation in the minds of our youth.
All right. Speaking about reorientation, someone I think talked about Nigerians changing their mindset about goods that are brought in from outside of Africa. And I want to use as an example goods that are produced from Aba. And all Nigerians are aware of what we popularly refer to as a made in Aba. Yes. And people try to say, oh no, that is made in Aba, I don't want it. And now you have an agreement, with a free trade area agreement, in which the industries in Aba can begin to push out these goods. The ingenuity in the, in the manufacturers in Aba that we so detest and so dislike. There's an opening now for them to push out these goods, which will, of course, turn out to be the ambassadors of Nigerian goods out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see, look, can you permit me to use myself as an example? And of course, you too. Almost everything you are putting on there is made in Nigeria.
Even Madam too.
Look at her. Look at this.
I'm the only odd man out.
I didn't say so. Look at that. Let's be very clear. During the days of these negotiations, I keep moving to, from Addis to Lusaka, from Lusaka to South Africa, etc. We are moving for negotiations. And everywhere I go to, people admire what I put on. And they will identify immediately and say, you are a Nigerian. I say, yes. Because of the way I dress. Because of this. And at a point one day I said, these people. One man from Zimbabwe called me and said, please, I want to approach you. Can I talk to you? I said, yes. Can you help me buy this thing when you're coming? I will give you my measurement. In fact, I have not responded. He had already brought out his measurement. I said, but I'm not a tailor. I said, okay. Do you know, one day I had to use that thing. I bought the one that I already sold from Aba and sent to him. This man gave me, in fact, sent money for me to buy more, up to 20 to send to him. Business has started. If you go to Aba today, the kind of production they are having,
first class,
there are classes everywhere in the whole of Africa. That is the FCFTA in the making. Two, in services, and I need to get back there, the AFCFTA has selected 5 sectors of services to liberalize, namely tourism, transport, telecommunications, finance, and distributive trade. 5 sectors. Now, if they liberalize this, don't forget, there is no African country where you get to today that you don't see Nigerian video. Yes. Nigerian music playing In fact, anytime you put Nigerian music, everybody wakes up. Whether they know the song or just the lyrics, and everybody's dancing. So for tourism, that's why some of us insisted when we were negotiating, we insisted that tourism must be put in. And that area is an opening now, that there is no place where they will reject all of these videos, all of this. So it's a sector that can really open up a lot of avenues for us. And somebody, somebody was talking about remittances. You will find out that once we're doing all of this, everything that is coming up here is remittances. Those are remittances that will hit the CBN. And then the GDP will be increasing. And then capital flights will be reducing. That's the most important thing we are talking about here. And finally, in the transport sector, I have visited some countries in Africa where they don't have enough transportation business. In fact, let me mention Guinea-Bissau. I went there on an ECOWAS mission. And you see people who wrote that on the road. And I ask questions. They say they are waiting for transportation. So what? But do you know that EFCFTA can open up space? Because Guinea-Bissau is hitherto a closed economy. Because of this, they are now going to open up. And investors, people from here can now move out their transportation businesses and then into that and make a lot of money.
All right. So far we've talked about what we can do here, the comparative advantage Nigeria has, and what Nigeria needs to fix. But then it's a continental agreement. And so we must attempt to look at what the other African countries who are signatories to this agreement would do. Given the scenario in Africa today, someone would ask, can we trust other countries in this agreement that they will be true to it? We can only speak for Nigeria, but can we attempt to see those countries that would respect the terms of this agreement?
Well, it's difficult for us to say that we would trust any country. What we have to do is, we know ourselves. So we should be the best. We should give the best out of ourselves, but we should not trust the other countries.
We should take the lead, right, Dr. Alaba?
Well, in any agreement, there will be disputes.
Yes.
Because the issue of trust in any agreement, everybody is a suspect also. But what the agreement has done is to put together a dispute settlement mechanism in case issue of distrust, arises. And, since every country we have signed to the agreement, we have negotiated the first phase, which is trading goods, trading services, and dispute settlement mechanism. We have put that in place. So the issue of trust, I believe, will be sorted out within this framework.
I am hoping that part of this agreement, something in it would specify, especially in terms of goods that have been traded, looking at, goods that are not entirely,
Thank you.
African indeed. So I'm looking at that.
You see, when you ask the question, can we be trusted? Can others be trusted? The question is, can Nigeria also be trusted? And that's what other people ask us when we get to the negotiation table. And they say, you Nigerians, if you sign this agreement, we don't trust you. But everybody's looking at it, one another from that particular angle. But see, the beauty of it all is that this agreement, apart from the dispute settlement mechanism, it also has a protocol on rules of origin. That means that, and that's where you're coming from, this particular glass must be originating from one of the member countries of the African Union, of the 54 that have signed.
To benefit
from it.
Yeah. Right.
If it is not, there is also within the clause there of that rules of origin protocol that value addition, that means some percentage which is agreed upon. Just like in ECOWAS, the ETLS has 40%. So that means a percentage, some level of percentage of it can be brought in from third party. But there must be a proof to that. The third angle to it is that there are also safeguards, safeguard mechanisms that will prove us from influx. And that's where people were crying, you know, of unwanted goods. Safeguard mechanisms entail, there are what we call administrative safeguards. There are also what we call technical safeguards. Administrative in the sense that, because the WTO allows it, GATS Article 18, 19, 7 and 6 provides that if your economy is under emergency, is under an influx of goods that you can no longer control, you can trigger such administrative safeguard mechanism. To the extent that, for instance, that yes, there are inflows of pharmaceutical products coming into your country, and they tend to kill your own pharmaceutical industries. You can say, oh, now there may be some quota. Because of the quota, I will take only this quantity that will come in. You can also say, because of health standards of my people, because we have discovered that some of these particular pharmaceutical, medicaments are not compatible with our nature, you can also raise your flag to say, please, we may not accept this. And it's allowed because you must have your policy space so that it does not infringe on your local domestic policy. But I think there's a role that the Parliament has here, and this is one thing we have not talked about. The Parliament would need to wake up
and domesticate.
The Parliament has the powers to domesticate this agreement. It is the Parliament that will ratify this agreement.
Right.
And to that extent, therefore, in terms of understanding the contents of this agreement, I have not seen that happening within our Parliament. Although they are just new. But I think I want to challenge them. Take up this particular agreement, read it through, go through it, let there be explanations, so that it would be, whatever you are ratifying will be in consonance with our extant laws and not contradictory. Thank you.
You see, government has to do something about this whole thing, because there are some countries that will be very porous, that will not have the stringent controls in infiltration of investment. And investment will go to where it is welcomed. And if we have a situation where they actually take on those weak countries within Africa and they create manufacturing that are just packaging units, and they stamp African stamp on it, and they actually take them to the free zones, then they will infiltrate the market and dump a lot of things, because the Asian continent has capacity to do a lot in taking out their goods out in the market. And they know that Africa is a large consuming continent. So they will be looking at this treaty now, this agreement now, and be looking at how they can actually exploit it. And they will actually come out to look at the countries that will welcome them. And it will not be difficult for them to actually establish.
You see, a way to solve that is the agreement talks about custom cooperation.
Yes.
It's a very, custom cooperation is a very solid part of the agreement, which I believe should address this. Then, coming back to the issue of trust, part of the safeguard in the agreement is that you may actually trigger withdrawal. If you think you are being injured in the agreement, you can trigger a withdrawal from the agreement. All of these things are the provisions inside the framework agreements.
Well, let's go back to the issue of reorientation, change our tastes, and what can you say to Nigerians now? Look inwards, first with your own productions, then you can talk about Africa before you begin to think of all those things we love to have from Europe and America, and which we insist we must keep bringing in to this part of the world.
Well, I think Nigeria, we have everything. except for the love of what is made in Britain, what is made in America. Because the leather they take to America, the leather they take to Britain, it's all from here. So we should be up and doing to really produce things that will equal the standards of those that we are yearning for. Most of us now do not go out to look for such products again from all those places, because we know we have high quality products that are being produced now in Nigeria that we can be satisfied with, that we can even show. For example, look at what I'm wearing. What's wrong with it?
Correct.
So we have everything here. So the only thing is for us to really measure up to the standards of those who are yearning for what is outside our shores.
I think things are changing, because if you look at the women, change the women's taste, you change a lot of things.
Sure.
If you look at the way women used to wear laces in those days, D and all that, it's all gone. They've changed it. They can also change their taste, because if you look at what we eat today, a lot of us are inviting cancers to ourselves.
Exactly.
Because we have organic food in Africa. We go import these fruits that are coated with a lot of wax and all that, and eat it and create a lot of problems. So if you can change the women's taste, you change Nigeria. We need to do a lot of reorientation, and we do that campaign extensively in everything that we do. You can imagine somebody importing herbal tea from China. Meanwhile, almost every tree that we have in Nigeria is a herbal tea, is a herbal product that can be converted into tea. So if we give this enlightenment and we're able to train our people to understand what it is, then there's a lot of economy in the process, because if somebody knows that you can use pawpaw leaf to do tea, and you just dry the pawpaw leaf and package it and it becomes tea, you don't even know what they are packaging for you from China. Whether that herb that they have there is grass, you don't know. Just because it's made in China, they want to drink it. And people actually take those things. We have so many things that we can change, and I believe that with enlightenment and reorientation, we'll have a lot of these things settled. If women can stop wearing laces, and they're wearing Akrana, and they are stoning the Akrana, you can see the stones shining and all that. It looks like lace. It's even better than the lace that we're buying. So I'm sure if they change their taste, it will affect the economy, and it will be better for
Not just women,
Nigeria.
even the men too.
All right. So all in all, on the continental level, this might just be one avenue for Africa to now assert itself as a world power.
Great. This is the opportunity. And of course, as we speak, Africa is doing only 16% of intra-regional trade,
Correct.
which is too poor.
Europe is doing
If you compare with Europe, that is doing 69.8%.
China is doing 59.
You know,
China is 59.
we are looking at other regions. If you compare that, that means that we are just dependent. Look at Nigeria, for instance. And it's a shame to say what I'm going to say now, but I must say it as a challenge. Do you know that 92% of our trading, both import and export, comes from outside Africa?
Yes.
Is done with outside Africa.
China and America.
And that's why some of us raised some questions initially to say, look, are we sure we want to go into AFCFTA? I was one of the people that kicked against AFCFTA. Because I knew, he knows me. He knows. And that's why, some people, they had to bring me back down. I said, okay, come on, I have statistics here. For instance, among the 10 trading countries in the whole of Africa, Nigeria is number 4. Look at these statistics. South Africa is doing 23.5%. Number 2, the second country that is number 2 is Namibia, 5%. Look at the gap. Then the third is Zambia, 4.9%. Then the fourth, Nigeria, 4.4%. Before you get to Egypt, 4.6, 4.1, and then Cote d'Ivoire, and so 3.6. Now, if you look at that, the question I was asking myself is, why are we this low in terms of intra-regional trade as far as Nigeria is concerned? But I now discovered that What made South Africa what they are today, getting to that point, is that they have variety of products.
Yeah.
But for us, mono product. 95% of all of that is gas and oil.
Petrochemicals.
And agro-produce. Agriculture, 2.5%. As far as agriculture, a whole of agriculture in Nigeria, that constitutes over 25% of our GDP. 2.5%. Manufacturing, that constitutes 9% of our GDP, only 2%. Then if you distill this, in terms of manufacturing, you now see cigarette. Out of the 2%, cigarette has about 37%. Come on. Then I said there's a problem.
Nigeria continues to be the investment bride of the world. If we fix some of these minor things, we'll get to where we want to get to.
We can.
Nigeria has the resources, we have the human capital to change Africa. This is a welcome development for Nigeria, and I think we should look at it positively. The body language of the president of the fight against corruption is beginning to reorientate the minds of our people. If you look at agriculture, people are looking back at agriculture now. What I want to beg Nigerians is that we should start to think Nigeria and remove all these sentiments of religion and tribe and location. Let us have a campaign that will make people believe in Nigeria.
Yes.
If we all say we are from Nigeria, we own Nigeria, we believe it and we own it, things will start changing. All these sentiments of religious sentiments and tribal sentiments, politics, you do a political timetable of 4 years, 2 years, we are talking about politics, we are talking about how we'll get there. When we get there, we'll stay in court for almost 1 year, and after 1 year, you don't do anything. We need to have some changes in our structure of doing things. Everything we need to succeed in Nigeria, we have it. All we need is to just tweak the way we do things and do some reorientation and enlightenment. Let's publicize the positive things about Nigeria and downplay these negative things. The publicity we have in the air in the social media is too negative. This signing ceremony that has been done now, if you look at the phone calls that we have had today, there are more people shouting and saying this is there's going to be dumping ground. It's not true. We are the giants of Africa, and we have more advantage in having our doors open because we will have more things to produce. All we need to do is tweak our people and change the way we think. We'll dominate Africa and start fighting the world because we are the second largest continent in the world today. And Nigeria is the biggest economy in this continent.
Dr. Olava, your closing comments as we wind up.
Well, I see Nigeria going big. I see Nigeria benefiting immensely in this agreement. But what I want to see is that Nigeria should begin to assert itself as the true giant of Africa. When produce goods that other countries would like to emulate.
Exactly.
You know, let us harmonize our standards. Let us, our standard conformity assessment institution, let us make them up and running. Let us make them in such a way that they will be a reference point to the rest of Africa so that we can really take benefit and access the market. God bless Nigeria.
All right. And from you?
I would say Nigeria, we have it all. It's just for us to sit down and know what we are supposed to do and do it right. A lot of packaging, we do not know how to package. We should, agricultural produce with very good packaging will go a long way, not only in Africa, even outside Africa. So, thank you very much, Cyril.
Well, the AfCFTA, that's the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. That's been our focus on this edition of NTA Tuesday Live. And as I always say, no one program can take care of all the ingredients and all the issues of any single topic. So, as some of our guests said here today, it's work in progress, and so we'll continue to keep an eye on the AfCFTA and bring you more on the issues arising and how the benefits can be maximized. For now, let's say a big thank you to all our guests. Haji Saratu Iya Aliu, National President of NASIMA, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Olumuyiwa Alaba, economist and trade expert, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Ken Nukoha, President of the National Association of Nigerian Traders and member Presidential Steering Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area. It's been interesting talking to you on this program.
Thank you very much.
And Francis Okumagwa, founder, FGM Platform Empowerment Limited, life coach and mentor. It's always good to see the passion in you for creating wealth. All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And thank you, too, for being part of this program. Next week, we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.